you'll notice that the notes look a tiny bit different. There's this extra scale kind of chart thing at the top of our notes. And I'm trying to make my lessons as transparent as possible. What I mean by that is I want you to be very, very clear on what's expected of you in order to be successful. So if you'll notice at the very bottom, a score of 1 means that with help you can do the very, very most basic stuff. At level 2, you know some of the important stuff. You know some of the vocabulary. What you need to aim for at the very least is being able to do the things listed in level 3. As honors students, you want to be kind of striving for that level 4. However, keep in mind, mastery is at level 3. If you get to level 3, you are able to do that which needs to be done in order to demonstrate success in this lesson. Okay, so I'm going to try to include a scale like that in all of our lessons so that you are very clear on what you want to make sure that you know how to do. And if you don't, then that's a question that you're asking. Okay? So, parallel lines. You know what parallel lines look like. Before we talk about a strict definition in this class of what parallel lines are, let me dispel a couple of possible wrong answers. Okay? So, let us consider that line back there at the top back of the wall and that line down there at the bottom back of the wall. Those two lines are parallel lines. They will never intersect. However, that top line at the back of the wall and this bottom line on my side wall, notice they will also never intersect. They are not, however, parallel. So, what's the difference? What makes those lines parallel and this line and that line what we call skew? Eugene?
Skew lines are on different planes, and the others are the same plane.
Absolutely, beautifully stated. Parallel lines are, whoops. Let's try that again. Parallel lines are coplanar lines that don't intersect. Skew lines, as he said, are non-coplanar lines. That don't intersect. Also, I want to add to your notes a definition for perpendicular lines. They're mentioned in a previous lesson of our text that we skipped because it's not something that is EOC important to us, but this vocabulary is, and I apologize for skipping it. Perhaps you already know what perpendicular lines are, though. Is this a term that you've seen before? What's it mean? What do perpendicular lines do? Yes, Sarah?
Intersect and form 90 degree angles.
Precisely, yes. Perpendicular lines are lines that intersect to form a right angle. I wanted to make sure to formally address that before we start talking about it. And then parallel planes are exactly what you think they would be. They're just planes that don't intersect. Now, in problem 1, they're asking us to apply that knowledge of what is parallel, what is skew, and identify in in part A, segments that are parallel to segment RU. So in problem 1, part A, one person please. Sarah.
ST.
ST is parallel to RU. There's more. Thomas.
VY.
Say that again?
VY.
VY, yes. Sorry, it's Trent. Any others? Any others? Yes, Grace. WX is also parallel. And some of you may be internally responding to that as, whoa, Mrs. Clouse, I don't see WX on a plane with RU. And no, there isn't a plane in that diagram drawn with WX and RU in it. But can you see that one could exist? Do you see that there could be a plane cutting diagonally through this box, and RU and WX would both be on it? Okay. In part B, we're being asked for segments skew to SW. Sometimes that's a little harder for students. Alyssa.
UT.
Say that again?
UT.
UT, yes. There's more. Someone else, please. Another segment skew to SW. I'd like to hear from someone else. Matthew.
YX.
YX is also skew. I'm running out of space here. Let's do this. What did we say? UT, YX, and there's more. Grace.
VW.
Say that again.
VW.
VW, no, we're looking for segments skew to SW. Notice that they have the W in common, so they are in fact intersecting. Trent?
RV.
RV is parallel to SW. Helena?
UR.
You are, yes. Yes.
YU.
YU is parallel to SW. Be careful. Alyssa.
YV.
YV. That's the last one, yes. In part C, we're being asked for parallel planes. Please remember, I know we haven't dealt with this in a while. Let me refresh your memory. Recall that you need 3 non-collinear points to name a plane. Your book, because it can't make up its mind, will sometimes use as many letters as are on the plane. I'd like to stick to how we should strictly name planes using 3 non-collinear points. So can someone please name for me a pair of parallel planes? Matthew.
VYX and RUT.
VYX is parallel to RUT, yes. Whoops. Notice the notation. The 2 parallel lines indicating parallel. VYX is parallel to RUT. Another pair of parallel planes.
VWS and YXT.
VWS and
YXT.
YXT, yes. And finally, in part D, segments that are parallel to plane, and there they go with the 4 letters, RUYV. I'm looking for segments that are parallel to plane RUYV. Matthew, just give me one, please.
ST.
ST is one of them. Helena, can you give me another?
WS.
Yes. that's one of the skills that we need in order to be a lesson 1 master, being able to identify lines as parallel or skew, planes as parallel. And then before we move on to the next portion of the lesson where we're talking about the angle pair relationships, let's take a moment within your groups. There's a your turn there for problem 1. Address those questions. Okay, we should be ready to talk about the your turn for problem 1 now. Part A, what segments are parallel to segment XY? What segments are parallel to XY? Sarah, give me one, please.
WV.
WV is one of them. Melissa, can you give me another?
TU.
TU is another. Don't lose track of the other one, Grace. RS, remember. Good. Okay, for part B, Y is segment UY, not skew to SW. We kind of talked about this, Helena. There could be a plane cutting across diagonally, yes. Okay, the next item that we're talking about in today's lesson has to do with angles that are formed when I draw a transversal through 2 lines. Well, let's make sure that we're clear on the vocabulary. Looking at this diagram, lines A and B are my lines. Lines A and B are my lines, and I say that line T is my transversal. The transversal, then, is a line that's doing what? What do you think? So, intersects 2 lines is a big part of it. Another big part of it is that it's intersecting those 2 lines at 2 different places. Okay, so a transversal is a line that intersects 2. I hate when it does that. 2 or more other lines at distinct points. Okay, so in this diagram, there will be 4 kinds of special angle pairs that we will discuss. Let's first number these angles so we have something to refer to. So make sure that you're numbering your angles the way I've numbered mine, otherwise our descriptions won't match up and you'll end up studying from the wrong thing. So the first kind of special angle pair that I have up here is alternate interior angles. And I want you to get to the point where the names of these special angle pairs kind of give away where the angles are. So just based on the name, Eugene, you have a hunch?
5 and 4.
Angles 5 and 4 will be alternate interior angles. And now that he's identified them for us,
With the definition, I'm not really getting that. 2 or more other lines at distinct points.
okay,
You forgot to put intersects.
oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Does that help?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right, so alternate interior angles, like angles 5 and 4, how would we describe those angles? If you were talking to one of the students that's absent today, and you wanted to describe to them, hey, these angles are alternate interior angles because, I'd like to hear from someone different. Anyone have a way to communicate that to a friend? How would you describe them to a friend?
It's the angles on opposite sides of the line
Which line?
of the transversal
Good?
that form the inside angle, the closest to the line.
That are inside of the
other
2
side,
lines.
okay.
Yes. Okay, so alternate interior angles are, as she said, angles, you know what? I'm going to type this just so that it fits. They're angles on opposite sides of the transversal inside of the two lines.
They also had a 180, correct?
And you're getting ahead. And not necessarily. No. Not that you're mixing up your properties. Okay.
Wouldn't they also be 3 and 6?
Excellent. Yes, angles 3 and 6 would also be alternate interior angles. Adrian.
That's what I was gonna ask. But so it couldn't be like 3 and 5 though, because they're on the same side of the line.
Look at what you just said. Think about what you just said. And glance at the screen. Tell me about angles 3 and 5. No?
They're same side interior.
They're going to be same side interior angles. So since you brought it up, let's go there. Sure. Same side interior angles would be like angles 3 and 5. And once again, if you had to describe these angles to a buddy that isn't here today, how might you describe them? Helena.
Angles on the same side of the transversal and side interior line.
Yes. And in the interest of thoroughness, there's another pair of same side interior angles in this diagram. What are they, Sarah?
4 and 6.
Angles 4 and 6. Right. The next pair of special angles that are formed by two lines cut by a transversal, alternate exterior angles. And again, just by the name, I'd like you to be able to identify them. I'm hearing a lot. Love hearing from Sarah, but I'd love to hear from more of you. I know it's morning. It's morning for me too. Zoe.
Angle 8 and angle 2.
Be careful. Alternate exterior angles. Angles 8 and 1, yes, are alternate exterior angles. And again, I don't want to cut the diagram now. If you had to communicate this to a friend, how would you describe those alternate exterior angles? How would you describe these alternate exterior angles? Matthew?
Angles on the opposite side of transversal and outside of the two lines.
Precisely, yes. And I'll tell you, for some reason, corresponding angles tend to be the one that students have the most difficulty with because the name doesn't really give it away. Okay? So I will tell you, angles 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. Angles 1 and 5 are corresponding angles. Okay.
Is it because that they're above the line?
They're both above the line, yes. However, notice also that angles 4 and 8 would also be corresponding angles. Sarah?
It's the angle on the same spot as a.
So one of the, I think the way that your book describes it is that they're in corresponding positions with respect to the two lines. That's kind of using the word to define the word, and I hate that. But there's really no other nice, compact, succinct way to say it. If I wanted to be really, really elaborate and try to make it as clear as possible, it would take a moment. So let's backtrack first of all. We talked about alternate interior and exterior angles, and we talked about same side interior angles, and so those gave us a clue about where the angles were with respect to the transversal. Tell me something about these angles as far as the transversal goes. Are they on the same side of the transversal, or are they on opposite sides of the transversal? Okay, so that's an important part of how we describe these angles, that they are on the same side, bless you, side of the transversal. Thank you. And then if I wanted to be as elaborate and thorough as possible, I might say both either above the two lines or both below the two lines. And I know that takes up perhaps quite a bit more space than you have there, but that's as absolutely clear as I can make that. I don't like using the word corresponding to define corresponding angles. But you will see that in your textbook, that they describe the angles as being in corresponding position with respect to the two lines. Adrian?
So it's basically like one is interior and one is exterior.
Yes, always. Good. Okay. Any other questions about these four angle pairs? Okay. Let's move on to identifying them. Do we have from this screen what we need? I know there was a lot here. In problem 2, I'm being asked to identify which angles are alternate interior angles out of this diagram. Don't call it out, take a moment. I know some of you see things very, very quickly, and I love that. But give your neighbor a chance to see it also if they take an extra moment. I'm asked for a pair of alternate interior angles. Okay, I'll see the hands now. Lauren. Angles 3 and 6 are my alternate interior angles. In problem 3, and I moved things around on this set of notes. Okay. Mine is different than yours.
Angle 2 and angle 7.
Okay. Okay, so in problem 3, I'm being asked about angles 7 and 2. So again, I know some of you see things really, really quickly. Give your neighbors a chance to notice it also. Okay, I'll take the hands now. Where are my hands? Nicole.
Alternate exterior angle.
They are alternate exterior angles, yes. Okay, that is our whole lesson. You'll notice on the notes that there's a your turn that corresponds to problem 2 and problem 3. I just kind of had to change the way things were ordered for the sake of the diagrams, but they do correspond to those two specific problems. And I'll be activating a Socrative quiz momentarily. You'll also notice that I'm trying to move towards this whole scale business on the Socrative quiz as well.